Selecting an all-time greatest 11 is a common enough pastime for football fans of any club. But as time marches on and heroes of the distant past become no more than whispered names half remembered by grandfathers and great-grandfathers long since passed on, many a great player drops out of the reckoning. The claims of generations of players idolised by the fans of their day are not so much passed over as never on the table in the first place. Several members of the Celtic team that lined up against Rangers in the league title playoff match at Hampden on the 6th of May 1905 would have been remembered by some older Celtic fans well into the post-war era, and players such as Celtic's record appearance holder Alec McNair, Jimmy McMenemy, Jimmy Quinn, Peter Summers and David Hamilton would have seen their claims to a place in the greatest ever Celtic 11 pushed against even those of the Lisbon Lions. The Scottish Cup was still at this time the most prestigious tournament north of the border, and it was only after winning it for a then record 10th time in 1900 that Queen's Park, resolutely clinging to amateur status, deigned to enter the league. Celtic had won the Scottish Cup for the 4th time in 1904, a Jimmy Quinn hat-trick, beating Rangers 3-2 in the final. Celtic was not yet 20 years old in 1905, and while they were unquestionably one of the country's leading clubs, it had been 7 long years since they had last won the league, since when Rangers had won 4 titles in a row, with the last 2 taken by Hibernian and Third Lanark. The rivalry between Celtic and Rangers was already at this nascent stage in the development of the Scottish game beginning to dominate. At the beginning of season 1904-05, they had each won the Scottish Cup 4 times, while Celtic had 4 league titles to Rangers, well, let's call it 4.5, after they shared the very first title with Dumbarton. Matches between the two had become increasingly intense over the past few seasons, although the sectarian element to their rivalry had yet to emerge from the shadows. Rangers were a mainly Protestant side, but so were most Scottish clubs, and there was no real sense as yet that they were the standard bearers for Scottish Protestantism against the most definitely upstart Irish Catholic Celts. Earlier in the season, the two had met in the Scottish Cup semi-finals at Celtic Park. Celtic had lost right-back Donny McLeod to injury late in the first half, and the 10 men were trailing 2-0 with less than 10 minutes remaining when centre-forward Jimmy Quinn was ordered off for kicking Rangers left-back Craig. The Scottish referee reported on the 27th of March, while on the ground, the latter was rushed into by the Celts centre, and, apparently, when trying to save himself from Quinn's boot, he held him by the leg. Quinn tried to pull himself free, but Craig still clung to the leg. Then the Celt lifted his free foot and dealt the Ranger a vicious kick. Referee Robertson at once ordered Quinn off the field, and the crowd, resenting the decision, scaled the railing and invaded the field. The referee and several of the Rangers players were assaulted, the ball was stolen, and the corner flags were taken away. After the players came back onto the field to complete the match, the field was invaded again, and the horrified Celtic directors conceded the match. Rangers lost 3-1 to Third Lanark in the final replay after the first match ended in a 0-0 draw. The last thing the authorities wanted in the spring of 1905 was another clash between Glasgow's Big Two, but that's what they got when they finished level at the top of the league on 41 points apiece after the 26-match programme had been completed. The Glasgow Herald on the 8th of May wrote, "The tie for the league championship, which was decided on New Hampden on Saturday, drew a crowd of about 30,000, which was much in excess of what could have been expected in view of the prolongation of the competition beyond the limits of public interest." At this time, the rules stipulated a play-off for the title, as had happened in 1890-91 when Rangers and Dumbarton had played out a 2-2 draw, after which the title was shared between them. If either goal average or goal difference had been in use, Rangers would have been champions, with a goal difference of plus 55 to Celtic's plus 37, and a goal average of 2.96 to Celtic's 2.19. The pivotal match in the normal league season took place at Ibrox on the 18th of February, a replay of the January the 1st fixture, which had to be abandoned after 70 minutes due to the crowd encroaching onto the pitch after a gate was broken down and an estimated extra 10 to 15,000 gained entry without paying. Doubles from Quinn and Hamilton gave Celtic a comfortable 4-1 win, which put them on 39 points to Rangers' 35, although Celtic had only one match to go, while Rangers had 3. With both teams winning all their remaining matches, the trouble in the Scottish Cup tie at Celtic Park was still fresh in the mind, and an English referee, Mr F. Kirkham Preston, was brought up to take charge of the play-off. The teams lined up at 3:30 p.m. for the decider. The first half finished scoreless, with most reports praising Rangers for their close combination play, while Celtic were more direct, but by all accounts, Sinclair was the busier of the two goalkeepers. The match burst into life shortly after half-time, with the Scotsman reporting, "The Parkhead forwards resumed their work with the same dash as had characterised their work in the first half, and while it was not of the same studied style as that of the Rangers, still it proved effective, McMenemy getting a soft shot past Sinclair after 20 minutes play." The cheering and excitement which greeted this success was only equalled by that which followed a couple of minutes later, when, following a corner, Sinclair was beaten for the second time by a deceptive shot from Hamilton from the vicinity of the corner flag, the keeper striking the ball against the inside of the post. 3 minutes later, Rangers pulled one back through Robertson, who scored from close range after a cross from future newsagent R.S. McCall. Thereafter, Celtic saw the match out, with Adams making one save of note from McCall, described by the Scottish referee as a great shot at express speed which Adams was lucky to save. Many of the papers praised the English referee for admonishing Hamilton and adding on a minute or two at the end after he deliberately kicked the ball out of play. The final whistle was greeted with a deafening roar from the Celtic support, and the Scottish referee snootily wrote, "Hamilton secured the ball at the close of the match. This ball-catching epidemic is being pushed to the point of absurdity." So Celtic secured their first league championship success since 1897-98. Of the 11 on the field, only left-back Willie Orr had experienced winning the championship before, but several of the others would go on to achieve legendary status as they added the next 5 titles to that day's success, winning the league for a then record 6 successive seasons, a record that would stand until Celtic's 7th in a row in 1972. Alec McNair, right half that day, would go on to become Scotland's finest fullback and would make 604 appearances in a Celtic career that lasted until 1925. Together with goalkeeper Charlie Shaw and left-back Joe Dodds, he formed a formidable defence that was known as the Holy Trinity, a name that probably would not have been bestowed by any support other than Celtic's. This kind of devotion could still be seen, along with a touch of black humour, as late as the 1950s, when in response to Hibernian's exhilarating forward line being dubbed the famous Five, Celtic's was christened the Five Sorrowful Mysteries. With McNair dropping to right back, the half-back line of Loney and Hay would be completed by the emergence of Sonny Jim Young. Young, Loney and Hay would trip off the tongue of a generation of Celtic supporters almost as easily as that of the forward line of Bennett, McManamy, Quinn, Summers and Hamilton, who terrorised Scottish football for the next 3 years before Alec Bennett was allowed to depart for his spiritual home at Ibrox, with Willie Kivlichan, recently discovered to some consternation to be a Catholic by Rangers, coming in the opposite direction in a not altogether amicable deal. A fascinating character in his own right, Kivlichan would eventually become Celtic's club doctor and tended to the stricken John Thompson on the day of his tragic death in 1931. The league playoff match of 6th of May 1905 was the game that kick-started a golden era for Celtic that would last until the end of World War I. It was very definitely a great Celtic day.